Hello students, in this lesson, more than learning what the Greek gift is, we're going to learn how we can create it out of thin air, even in a position like this one where we don't have the ideal positions. Now, most of you who are familiar with the Greek gift already, you have seen an ideal position like this one, where you have everything set up to make it work. You have the bishop on d3 to sacrifice on h7, you have the knight ready to jump to g5, you have the queen ready to go to h5, and you even have the pawn on e5, preventing the other knight from coming to f6. And you have the bishop on c1. So this is the ideal position that most of us see the first time we learn about this concept. But guys, in my experience, I have never gotten an ideal position like this one. Like typically, when I get the Greek gift, I have to think of other ideas to make it work, because it is really difficult to have everything prepared to make it work, just like this one. So if you just learn this and sit there waiting for the perfect position to arrive for you to do this, that's not going to work. So in this lesson, my goal is that you understand what the Greek gift is, but you also have enough information for you to create it even when the right conditions aren't there. So you might see one or two of these items and you might be like, maybe this is enough to do the Greek gift, and this is how I can force it. So I'm going to show you two positions and I'm going to show you two games, guys. One of those games was played by Anand versus Karpov, and if you're able to pull something like this on Karpov, you definitely understand this concept. So you're going to see how Anand went from a position like this one, and he used the idea of the Greek gift to defeat Karpov. So let's get to it, and we're going to start with the basic or the ideal position. Guys, those of you who are brand new to this concept, this is the idea. If we have our opponent's king castled, and we have the following items that I'm going to mention, you can start a forced continuation to attack the king and put it in checkmate. So this is what we need. Basically, the most important thing is going to be this bishop on this diagonal, because that's going to be the actual gift, the sacrifice. But then it is very important that after the king takes, we're able to bring our knight to g5 with check. Everything we have learned in this course, that whenever we do a combination, we need to look for forcing continuations. If not, they have time to regroup and defend. So after the bishop is sacrificed, we're going to follow with knight g5, and in this item, guys, the knight jumping to g5, it is a very good bonus if you have this bishop on this diagonal, because not only does the bishop help the knight get to g5, but it is also going to prevent this king from going to h6 successfully. So when you have this position, knight g5, we have to consider three moves for the black pieces. They could go to g8, they could go to g6, and they could go to h6. h8 we don't really care, because you're going to see it is the same thing or even easier than if they go to g8. Now if they go to h6, now we have the bishop here, and we could take on f7 and we hit the queen. Now with that said, sometimes we don't have the bishop here and we can still make it work, and that's exactly what I want to give you guys. Ideas, resources for you to make it work when it is not so ideal. So going back here, again, we need the bishop. Second item, the knight. Third item is the queen able to jump to hit the king after. So once the knight moves, that queen comes over as well. And look, once that queen arrives, so let's say we go knight g5, the king goes back here. Once the queen arrives, we're hitting h7 and we're threatening checkmate. And the last item is going to be this pawn on e5. Again, it is not like you need it every time, but it is really important because it does two things. Number one, it keeps the square away from the king. If the king comes to g6, that king is not going to have that escape through f6. But it also prevents this knight from coming to f6 and defend. So this e5, it is a very good indicator that you could go ahead and do the Greek gift. So let's get to it, guys. Basically, this is how it goes. Bishop a7, king takes, knight g5. Now here, if the king goes back, very easy. We're threatening to do h5. If they go f6, trying to escape, well, it just doesn't work. We have the knight there. If they do something like g6, the same thing. So the only thing they could do to delay it is to move the rook and try to escape through here. But then now we have this move. Since the rook moved, we could do, instead of doing this right away, we're going to insert this check. We've removed that pawn, and you're going to see how it makes sense. And now when he goes back, then we do it all over again. So queen h5 again, then check, only move, check, only move, and now when we take on g7, it is checkmate because the pawn is in here. So that's the importance of removing this pawn first. So I'm gonna go back, guys. Again, the moment we sacrifice on h7, we have to calculate when they take if after g5 they could go back or if they come up here. We already have covered these two. We have covered this one. Now, what if they go to g6? Now, here, this is the one that there are two main moves you have to be familiar with. If one doesn't work, you gotta think of the other one. And again, it is all going to come down, guys, to calculation, but it helps if you have seen this before. So basically, the move that many people think of right here is going to be queen g4. So the queen is coming into the game, and we're threatening a very strong discovery check, getting the queen. Now, the reason why it might not work so effectively many times is because after f5, and we just go queen g3, then they could do queen e7, and you don't have that discovered check to hit the queen. Now, still, you're winning, you have a very strong attack, but it is not going to be as effective as if you did this other move. So let me go all the way back, and again, we start by sacrificing knight g5, king g6. Now, the other move that I want you to think of whenever you start considering the Greek gift is h4. Now, h4 not only is bringing more support to the knight, but we're actually threatening to do h5. And at that point, they are done. If they did something that doesn't make any sense, like a6, then you go h5. If they go to h6, well, you know what to do, guys. If they go to f5, then you have two different moves here that deliver checkmate in one move. Can you figure it out? Well, if you pause the video and you found this move, perfect, that's checkmate. If you thought of queen f3, that's also checkmate. So once you go here, guys, he went to g6 and you do h4, they could do rook h8. Now, in this case, there are a few ways you could continue. I think the strongest move right here is going to be queen d3. You see, this is another move to keep in mind. And again, my main objective is that you're familiar with these moves. You know that the queen sometimes goes to g4, sometimes it goes to d3. It is up to you at this point when you calculate which one you pick, but at least you've seen these ideas before. Now, if queen d3, that's it, guys. Going to h5, they're already done. There's checkmate in two moves, so you have check. If they take, well, then we have checkmate on f3. So you see, we have to be familiar with everything that we have learned so far to make this work successfully. If they had gone here to h6, well, then we have checkmate in one move as well. So going back here, after queen d3, they have to block with the pawn. And now we also learned about en passant. They have to take with the king. And at this point, we have queen f3, then king g6. And guys, we have a very strong attack here. There has to be checkmate in a few moves. If they had gone to e7, I think this is going to be check and checkmate. If they had gone to g6, I think this is check. Then they have to go to h6. And this has to be winning already. So discover check. Not only are you hitting the queen again, but you're going to do checkmate now on g7. So again, this is something that I'm pretty sure all of you could calculate if it comes this far, but it really helps if you've seen it before. And the last thing on this position, guys, even in this position, even if you didn't do queen d3, if you do h5, you're also winning this game easily. If they take, well, the queen is going to take on h5. You know what to do if they go to f5, you know what to do if they go to h6. So there are many ways to win once the king is so exposed. So I'm going to put everything back, and now you know this is going to be that first position everyone experiences the Greek gift with. Now, I'm going to show you an entire game next, and in this game, you're going to see how they get to a position like this one, and how they make it work even if they don't have the perfect conditions. So we're going to get more resources, and hopefully you remember this whenever it is your time to execute it. Alright, so this is a very short game. It's only 16 moves, and the game started with e4, e6, French defense, d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, then bishop g5. Notice how we're going after that knight, right? The knight that is defending. So bishop e7, they eliminated the knight, and then after knight f3, and they castle. Look, the king is already castled to that side, and now the white pieces went pawn to e5. So notice how things are getting that shape now. So when the bishop moved, we already have this pawn here taking that square away from the king, if it ever gets up to that point. And we don't want this knight also to go to f6 and defend. So very important, this pawn is getting us more space on the king side. Now, after they did bishop e7, we have bishop d3. So we know exactly what we have in mind already. So bishop d7. And now, guys, I have a question for you. Is it safe to execute the Greek gift? Well, if you look closer, we have everything apparently. We have the pawn on e5, we have the bishop important to be sacrificed, the knight is able to jump to g5, the queen is ready to go to h5, but when that knight goes to g5, it could be captured. So what do we do in this case? So you get to this position, you're like, oh man, I remember the lesson on the Greek gift. I wish I could just go ahead and do it. But I need the bishop to be gone. I need the queen to be gone. So I think I'm going to have to wait. Well, in this game, they found a resource that you could have at the back of your head, and maybe you get to use it if you need it. So the move that they did was actually pawn to h4. Extremely important. You saw this already in the other position, but here it is a little bit different. So h4 is going to bring that support, but more importantly, we're looking for a way to open up the file for the rook. This rook open, guys, is going to bring you that support that you need. So the black pieces seeing this, they just went pawn to f6. So they don't want the knight to go to g5. But if your calculation skills are good, then you might dare to do this move, knight to g5 anyways. Remember, guys, what we're looking for, this knight is typically the helper. Well, we're looking for a rook to be the helper, and we know that the rook could be just as powerful. So after knight g5, the black pieces took on g5, and now I dare you guys to pause the video and try to think of the next move that they had in mind. Well, if you did pause the video and you came up with the Greek gift already, then you got it right. So we don't want to take and then see if we can do bishop h7 because they could defend. So the move is forcing continuation, check. If the bishop takes, then we have check. So we're taking on g5 with the check, and now with this rook on an open file, guys, the game is over. I'm not even going to go too deep into this because after queen h5, king f5, we have to have checkmate there, guys. It could be something like g6, the king keeps coming over here. I trust that you have the calculation skills and the tactical skills to make this work. Now, if they go back to g8, well, pause the video, guys, come on, you can do this. What will be the next move for the white pieces? Well, guys, at least I hope that you're looking at candidate moves, and one of those candidate moves has to be rook h8. Check. If they take, now the queen comes in with a check, that's very important. Then king g8, and now after g6, there's nothing they could do to prevent the checkmate. Even if they move the rook, we go check, and then checkmate. Now, if they had instead not taken the rook, if they go here, well, the queen comes in with a check. Then we have queen h7 check, and after king e8, finally we have checkmate. They cannot even block with a rook because it is pinned. So guys, as simple as that. This game ended because they spotted the idea of the Greek gift. They did not have this step of knight g5. Well, they went for pawn h4. So this pawn h4 is another idea that you need to incorporate in this Greek gift concept. So with that said, now let's get to the main game that I wanted to show you. This is going to be a game played by Anand as the white pieces and Karpov as the black pieces. Now guys, this game, I'm not going to go too deep into the opening moves, but I wanted to show it to you from the very beginning. That way you see how they transition from opening to middle game and how they create the conditions for such an attack on the king. So the game started, Anand is the white pieces, knight f3, d5, d4, e6, and then we have the queen's gambit already. Now in this game, the black pieces actually accepted the gambit, and now we have pawn to e4. So already we are controlling the center, and we're getting ready to take on c4 and develop another piece. So after b5, and by the way guys, this b5, it typically doesn't get you much as the black pieces. Typically the black pieces have to end up giving the pawn back, and they just get a pretty weird position. At least that's my opinion. So after b5, we have a4, typical procedure to break down this pawn chain. c6, a takes, pawn takes, and now b3. So once we break this down, they're going to have weaknesses. We're going to have ways to go in and put more pressure. So after b3, bishop b7, hitting e4, they took on c4, bishop takes, and then they take on b5. Here we go. Finally, the white pieces have the same amount of material. They got the pawn back, and now it is just a matter to rush and develop our pieces quickly, guys. So after c takes b5, we have knight f6 trying to develop. Bishop e2. Notice how this bishop is not getting on that diagonal. We don't have a pawn on e5, so this looks nothing like the Greek gift position. So after bishop e2, we have bishop e7. They both castled. And after knight c3, hitting the bishop goes to b7. We have knight e5. We have talked about this. Knights like to be in the center, protected by a pawn. And guys, I know we haven't talked much about it, but isolated pawns, they could be weak pawns, but they also provide some benefits, such as outposts for your knights. It provides semi-open and open files. So the white pieces are clearly using that right away. Now, pawn to a6, then bishop f3, knight d5, and now we have knight takes d5, e takes d5, and rook b1. Now, queen b6 for the black pieces. And now, guys, I challenge you to pause the video and see if you can come up with the next move for the white pieces. It is really difficult to find, but use this as practice. Try to evaluate the position if you want, and let's see if you can come up with a move that Anand found for the white pieces. Well, at this point in the course, you should know that we have to look for at least 3 candidate moves, okay? So if one of those candidate moves that you found is bishop e2, then you should be really, really proud. Now, the idea, guys, is that we want to bring this bishop to a better diagonal. I really like it here because we're putting pressure on that isolated pawn, but Anand liked it better on d3 and getting ready to sacrifice on h7. So bishop e2, very strong move, very deep idea. You really have to understand these concepts if you're doing this maneuver with the bishop. So after bishop e2, they took on b5, rook takes on b5, and now the queen goes to c7. So we get to this position and it's time to develop our last minor piece. So we're not going to do anything crazy until we have developed our pieces. So the question for you is, where would you put that bishop? Well, guys, I want to put it on f4 because my bishop is active. I'm putting it on the same diagonal as the queen, and I'm getting ready for a discovered attack on the queen, hitting that rook as well. So bishop d6 now for the black pieces, and finally bishop d3. Now notice that this is nothing like the ideal position. We don't have the knight ready to go to g5. We don't have the pawn on e5, but you're going to see how they make it work. After bishop h6, needless to say, guys, that the next move for whites was bishop takes h7. Now, let's try to practice our visualization skills, our calculation skills, and let's try to do this in our head. So I'm going to move the pieces after, but let's try to do it in our head first. So we're looking at bishop takes h7, king takes, we have the queen ready to go to h5, and then at this point they only have one move, king g8. So try to visualize that position. The queen is here, the king is here, this is gone, this is gone. So how do we bring more backup? We need pieces to help out. Well, guys, we don't have a rook on this file that we can maybe open up the file and have the rook help. We don't have the knight able to go to g5 quickly and effectively. So this is another resource that I want you to be familiar with. So again, after we take, king takes, queen h5, the king goes back, then we have sometimes the option to bring the queen side rook over to help. So I know this is a long shot, but in this case, since the bishop is already gone, they did rook b3 and we bring the rook through the third rank to help the queen. Sometimes this rook is going to be here, so you could do rook a3 and you bring it over to help. So this game continued with check, check, and now the rook goes to b3. Guys, a little bit slow. It's not like you come with an immediate threat, but they know that after the rook comes over to the king side, this is going to be a lot of pressure, especially since the black pieces have development issues. They haven't developed the knight, so this could help us a lot. So after rook b3, the black pieces took the knight. They know that knight could be very, very powerful. And then instead of taking right away, we just brought the rook over to h3. Now we're threatening checkmate on h8. So they went f6, trying to escape through f7. But at this point, the white pieces continue with d takes e5. Now we're getting ready to do so many things, either check followed by discovered attack on the queen, or we could do e6 first, attacking the queen, and then the checkmate. So there are many things in the air right now. For all we know, our pieces are really close to that king, and they might not have enough defenders. After the white pieces took on e5, then queen e7, guys, anything else could get them in a lot of trouble. If they had done something like queen c4, then we have rook e1. So they're trying to do checkmate, but then rook e1 not only gets away from it, but we're getting our rook on this file, preventing the king from escaping. And of course, we could help the pawn get to e6 as well. So after rook e1, even if they take, we go check, king f7, e6, and now if they go to e7, well, check, and then we have checkmate. If they go to e8, well, the same thing. We could go queen g6, and if the king goes to e7, same thing. If the king goes to d8, pawn to e7, and they have to be losing this game easily. So going back here, in this game, the black pieces did not go to c4, they went queen e7, and at this point we have check. The king starts making its way out to get exposed, and now look at this move, guys. The next move for whites is rook g3. Now this is extremely important because we're looking for moves that make our opponent uncomfortable. And that's why you see sometimes I'm playing my games in a tournament and I like to stand up, walk around, and look at the game from my opponent's perspective. So this is something that you see many people doing it because it really helps. What move could make my opponent uncomfortable? I don't have any check, anything forcing, but if you look at this position from black's perspective for a moment, and let me see, I know it could be a little bit confusing, but if I'm the black pieces here, I'm playing in a tournament game, I have to feel uncomfortable. That hitting on g7, this pawn could take or push, it could open this file. So I know I'm not going to feel comfortable here. So let me put it back. Sorry for doing that. I know it could be confusing, but just for you to see how difficult it could be. Because sometimes, guys, people don't like to take risks unless they have everything calculated. Well, sometimes you have to trust your intuition. You have to see that you have so many pieces here. They have not developed this side. So something tells you that this has to work. So anyways, at this point, after we did rook g3, then king e8, notice that king how it went from g8 to e8. And there's another idea that I want you to see from this game. Very powerful idea, guys. So finally, the rook goes to g7. Rook on the 7th rank, double tap with the queen. And now after the queen gets out of the way, we have e takes f6. Now finally, we're opening up this file. The pawn is getting involved as well. So we're hitting e7 now, and they're about to get in trouble. So the black pieces did knight c6 finally. This is move number 29. And now is when the knight is going to be developed to c6. So at this point, we have rook a1, activating the only piece that is doing nothing. Then the king goes to d8, tries to run away. Pawn h4, extremely helpful. Notice how Anand even takes the time to open up an escape window for the king, but also it is bringing support for the bishop to go to g5 in case the queen ever takes on f6. So after h4, bishop b7, then we have rook c1, bishop a6, rook goes to a1. Notice how they're just repeated moves, but this is only because they were in time pressure, so they don't have much time to actually think. But soon you're going to see how the white pieces simply found the right continuation. So bishop b7, and now Anand found rook d1 instead of going to c1. So the rook comes to the same file as the king, and now after bishop a6, this is the last resource that I wanted you guys to get from this game. Next time that you're doing something like this, you exposed that king, you made a run from the king side to the queen side. Think, what if my queen could come around as well from the king side to the center or to the queen side? So this move now was queen b1. Notice how the queen transfers all the way to get to b6, and they're already in a lot of trouble. So after queen b1, we have rook takes pawn, bishop g5, and at this point, the black pieces ran out of time and they lost the game. But guys, even if they hadn't run out of time, we had a very easy position here to win. So we have queen b6 coming in with a check, we have queen h7, and in the meantime, our king is really safe. So my biggest tip for you is that you take this position like we learned on lesson number 75, and you finish it versus the computer. Let's see if you have what it takes to capitalize on this and finish a winning position already. So if you go ahead and do it, please let me know if you were able to finish it or not. So with that said, guys, I'm going to take you now to the last position of this lesson. And this position is actually from one of Capablanca's games. So he was playing with the white pieces, and I'm not going to go over it. This is just for you guys to tell me in the comments of this video if you think bishop h7 is a good idea right now or not. And if you have any plans, any variations that you want to put in, good, because that's going to give you an idea of how well you understood this and how well your calculation skills are. If you don't think it is efficient, if it's a good idea to do it now, put that as well. I just want to get an idea of where you guys are at. So good luck on this one. White pieces to move. What would you do? If you decide not to take on h7, then I would like to know what your plan would be. And not to ruin any plans that you could come up with, but some people might think of, okay, let me save my bishop, it's being attacked. Eventually I want to put my queen on e2, bring the rooks to the open files. But again, look hard into bishop h7 and see if it works or not. So I really hope that you understand what the Greek gift is, but more than that, that you got other resources that you could use to make it work, even when your opponent doesn't even know that you're trying to do such a sacrifice. So with that said, I'll talk to you guys in the comments, and I will see you in our next lesson.